welcome. I can't believe that this is the first time that you are here with me in this community, because I've known you for so long and I've been enjoying you for so long.
Well, I'm super honored to be here, and I apologize in advance because I'm not in my normal office setup. I'm on vacation for 6 weeks.
The
And
best.
this is the only even remotely work related thing I'm doing on vacation. This doesn't really feel like work. I'm just chatting here with my new friends, but I'm sitting on the outside of on the yard of my Airbnb house in Los Angeles. Normally I live in Korea, and it's really nice to be in a similar time zone as a lot of the people on the call. So if you hear other noises, it's because I'm in the yard. I apologize, but I'm really happy to be here. Truly honored.
I
And
love it.
to let it all loose. Let's go.
I love it. And I knew that you had that part of you, but I didn't know you were in Korea. I just thought like you were from Korea. Like the fact that you've been doing as much as you've been doing on that time zone is very impressive and amazing. Like you make it look so easy. So here you are. Let's talk about the joy of marketing. Let's talk about how you've turned everything on its head and help people to actually show up for their business. But before you started to do that, you were a hypnotist, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So how did you move from that into coaching? And then we'll talk about how you moved from that into helping coaches to market their services.
So I don't like to say I was a hypnotist, because once a hypnotist, always a hypnotist. If you have the skills to entrance someone, you keep those skills forever. I just did it to you right now. So when I first learned hypnosis, it was because I was really interested in the human mind, and I wanted to get underneath the surface of what's going on, because it's so easy to notice how, among all the things we do, only a few of them are, like conscious decisions that we make. The rest are unconscious. The rest are already programmed. And so I was always super interested in self-development and self actualization. And I thought, if we could get under the hood and work with the subconscious mind, which is what hypnosis does, wouldn't that be such a faster way to generate change, starting with myself? Because I felt like such a giant mess. At least that's the thought I had about myself back in the day when I first learned this shit. I want to say maybe like 15 years ago. And so while I learned hypnosis, it was more like, I'm interested in the human mind. I want to help people change. And hypnosis just became a language of change that I speak. One language among many languages, right? To go under the hood. And from the beginning, it was thanks to the mentor that I had, but I started really treating it as like different ways of coaching the mind. And with hypnosis, you're like coaching the unconscious mind. Whereas with other modalities of coaching or healing, you might be using, your logical brain more. And so I started with hypnosis, but then I started adding other things to my coaching arsenal, because at the end of the day, I just really wanted to stop feeling like such a fucked up person myself. I wanted to change some habits that I was really concerned about in myself. I identified as a chronic procrastinator. I was like, I never have my shit together. I overeat, I oversmoke, I overdrink, I probably overdate. Everything, fix me so I can be better. Like, I want to learn hypnosis, and maybe I won't be this version of myself. So that's where it all started. And I learned one modality, one method, one language after another. And 15 years later, after I started that journey, what I can tell you is that all those modalities taught me one thing, which is that there was nothing to fix to begin with, because I was never flawed. I was never problematic. I was just a valuable, worthy, beautiful human being. And I think that's what I learned after 15 years of studying self-development and coaching and all of that. It's like, oh, it turns out there's nothing to fix because I'm not a problem. What do you know?
Yes. So well said. So well said. And I'm not surprised that you are so good at marketing. I'm not surprised that you're so good at coaching, because of course, it's always about the automatic program that's running in the subconscious and being aware of it, and then being able to speak to it, right? So much of what works in advertising is really understanding psychology. It's really, really, truly marketing is not marketing. Seth Godin says marketing, you could just exchange the word for communication. And how do you actually tell a story that helps the person feel seen and then helps them to see where they are the hero of their own story on the other side of taking the step, whether it's a product or a service, right? And so often when we don't understand any of that, we look at sales and marketing as something we have to pitch, we have to do all of these things to get to this place called a sale. And it's really, again, that's an automatic program. That's a whole bunch of thoughts that are just interesting. They're just thoughts. Thoughts are not facts. So I'm really delighted to get to be in your company. I've reshared a bunch of things you've posted. I love the way you show up in your energy. I love the way you call people forward to that energy. So let's talk about what happened when you started to become a coach. And you realized that there was something joyful, which those two words, joyful and marketing, which you now have,
Okay.
you have.
Can I actually pick something that you said and kind of like, because it's
Yeah.
some of my own thoughts. So I love and admire Seth Godin. He is one of like the big heroes in my mind. And he taught me so much of the foundation of what I now know about marketing. But when he says marketing is communication, I kind of want to take that to the next level.
Okay.
I mean, not the next level, but I want to take that to my level.
Yes, let's hear it. I'm here for it. More.
So, in this conversation, I'm going to say the word women a lot, but please understand that to mean like any human being that's socialized as a woman, not technically anyone who, so I kind of think that, again, broad generalizations, I kind of tend to think that like men and like a masculine dominated society and industry tend to take things that women, again, all humans socialized as women, do intuitively and extremely well and organically, and then they like have to analyze it and turn it into a system and call it a name. They're like, we just discovered how to do this and it's called this and it's got 5 steps, and us women we're like, what? We just do that naturally. So that is to say, when people say communication, I'm like, okay, communication, that sounds like something I go major in college. Like, what is communication? But you know what communication is? It's relating to human beings, right? And when it comes to marketing, at least the way I think of it, the way I think about business, marketing is about knowing what you give a shit about and who you give a shit about, because those things are tied together, right? Like, I give a shit about these people and they struggle with this thing that I give a shit about for personal reasons. And then I'm going to talk to them. I'm going to relate to them because I give a shit. That is relating. I bet you $1 million every single person in this room relates competently all day long. And then we're like, okay, so marketing is communication. How do I do the communication? Right? Again, this is not a dig against Seth Godin. Like, this is,
no, I get.
You get what I'm saying, right? And so that's why everything that people teach about marketing, it's like, every single person starts a business because they care, right? They care about the thing that they're offering, about the difference it makes, about the people that it helps. And all you have to do is to see who you're helping as a human being like yourself and remind yourself, oh, I started this business because I give a shit. It's all about giving a shit. When I give a shit, what do I want to say? Like, that's it. That's it. And then I think we come in here, when I say we, I mean like the men and the patriarchy, and patriarchy informed, like men dominated industry informed ways of looking at things and dissecting them and understanding them. There's all these systems and things that are made to look very like, this is what's professional and this is official marketing, and then you have to like know what the things are. I kind of think that all of those things can kind of remove us from the natural authority that we all have, and instinctively, right? That we know about who we connect to, who
Yeah.
we want to bring with us, what we care about, right? And so that's why I say when I teach marketing, I'm like, forget all of marketing. It's like you have to unmarket to market like a
Yes.
human being. So
Yes, yes, yeah. Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think there is, because there's all these subconscious programs, when you do hear the words marketing, it feels all of a sudden like there is a systematized world, and then there's things like copy and funnels, and all of a sudden it feels very not about the personable thing. It feels very not intuitive. It feels very not about people. And I was talking to a friend recently and I said, send me the ad that you're running on Facebook, because she's like, nobody's clicking on it. And I'm like, that looks like an ad from 1,000 miles away.
yeah,
So if it was in your feed, would you be like, I love ads. I really want to click on an ad. I like ads. She's like, no. I'm like, so what if instead of putting up an ad, because that's what you do when you're marketing something, you actually put something that is the content itself?
yeah.
Like that the ad is just the content itself. Because it's so fascinating. People, and this is just one example, but people put a lot of energy into the things that they market. And it's like, then create something there that you actually want to put in someone's heart, right? So a lot of times, if I was ever going to do something, I always could feel like they're going to zig, I'm going to zag. So instead of putting up an ad, I'm going to actually take a picture I took from my phone, and I'm going to take a picture that doesn't look anything like an ad, and I'm not going to put no copy on it at all. I want to talk to them. I want to actually go the opposite way.
So what you're doing when you do that is you're giving them you. And when people think I have to do ads, they think, oh, I have to like hide me and put up something that's like professional and gonna convert and da 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 da.
Right.
Right. And so I think so much of marketing is hiding ourselves and putting something in the way of the client seeing us, because we're like, oh, they don't want to just look at me. Who am I? I want them to look at this thing. So you put that up, you put up the ad, and then the person, instead of seeing you and wanting to know you, is going to be like, oh, that's an ad, and they scroll past it, right? So please, like, don't let marketing be something that stands in the way of people seeing who you are and connecting to who you are. Like we're taught in so many different directions that that's how to do real marketing. That's how to do, like, effective marketing. That's, you have to worry about this and this and that and make it perfect to make it convert, da 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 da. But all of that is what people do when they don't trust that who they are is enough. That when they don't trust that all people really want to see and connect to is you, like the weird selfie you, not like the
Oh yeah.
professional glamorous photography you. So 100% Cathy.
I love that. So I want to ask you, since you have spent so much time now with people, and once a hypnotist, always a hypnotist, and in looking at the way in which people show up in their business, you've learned over and over and over again what some of that murky water is that keeps us from actually stepping forward, right? Some of those subconscious thoughts. I'm curious if you could just think of what are some of the most common subconscious beliefs in the automatic program that keep people from being able to show up, and what might be some of the alternative thoughts or mantras or possibilities that they could consider instead of what you've seen as being like the number one and number two biggest piece of garbage that's floating in that subconscious.
Okay, so I've never said what I am about to say out loud because it just occurred to me as like a new concept, a new framework as you were speaking just now, Cathy. But like you said, a lot of us, we walk around with automatic programming from our unconscious mind, right? And you asked about the top programming. You know what? I think that the most powerful levels of unconscious programming that we walk around with is actually the programming of trauma. And that's what comes up the most when we go out and try to market. And I want to say, of course, there's different levels of personal trauma, but I think that if you've been socialized as a woman or if you've been marginalized in any way, the trauma isn't something that we like obviously it's not something we inflicted on ourselves, but it's something that's systematically instilled in us and taught to us. Like we are made to have trauma by this society, and we carry generations of trauma in our bodies of our generations of our ancestors. And here's what I mean when I say that the programming is the programming of trauma, which is the number one thing that I hear from entrepreneurs who show up and they start a business, they want to market. What's the number one thing that stalls them? Fear of visibility. I'm afraid to show up. I'm afraid to say this. I'm afraid to claim that I am what I am, that I do what I do. I'm afraid to talk about my offer because, right? It's the fear of visibility. And we treat the fear of visibility as if it were a personal defect, a personal flaw. You just don't have the right beliefs, da 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 da. When in fact, our society trains us since we are little babies to hide ourselves, to be invisible, to stay in line, to figure out what the right thing is to do and say, watch the grown-ups, do what the teacher says, do what your parent says, and then don't show your emotions, don't be so emotional, don't like do the thing that everybody else is doing. And so we are literally like trained, groomed to present a very specific, like narrow range of like, this is the range of behavior that's okay for you to present so that we don't reject you, so we don't punish you. So now
oh my
suddenly,
gosh, mic drop. Like we need to like hold there because just to have reverence for how clearly you just distilled and handed everybody clarity, right? Because that absolutely keeps you from being visible. You said that's the number one fear, being visible, claiming this, making an offer, and absolutely in our family culture, in the culture of the world that we're living in,
schools, jobs,
the choosing of belonging over authenticity because we don't want to hit the third rail, because we don't want to get this mom upset, because dad's going to drink again if I do this, because I'm the nice one and I have to get the good grades, or just because who the hell knows? It could be little t trauma, it could be big T trauma, but you're absolutely right. And holy gosh, I mean, if you can't be visible, you could take every class. You can go to every course. You can get 3 MBAs. Nothing
and 5
will
PhDs.
move. Yeah, nothing's going to move.
Yeah.
Because that fascination, right, which we've now learned because we see it in the data, if you're experiencing something here, your body thinks it's happening now. So if you're reliving a thought, which puts you back in that state somatically of trauma, when Simone or me say, oh, you should go live, and it's like, hell no, you're not going to go do that without even knowing why. And then you go, I just haven't figured out my offer. I just, you know what it is? I need, and it's like, no, like there is definitely. So where do we go with that? How have you helped people move beyond that?
I think just as you can see in the comments, I think just naming it is so powerful.
Yeah.
Naming it and naming the source so you know it's not you. You're not the problem. That's like the theme of today. You are not a problem to be solved. There's nothing wrong with you, right? I think often about, this is my specific culture, but I know that every single one of you has a story, has a history that's not that different. Like, for example, I'm Korean. My parents are Korean. My people are Korean. And it was literally just like 3 generations ago when in the country, in the culture, women were literally not allowed to go outside and be seen and show their faces without a male guardian, right? Like if I'm a woman in Korea and it's 1895, like I'm not allowed to go outside and show my face. It was like against the law and against custom. And now that's Korea in that specific period of time. But like I said, every one of you, there is something wherever you are from, wherever your family's from in history of the world, right? There's something like that. And so, okay, so first I could be sent to prison for showing my ankle. And now I'm supposed to show up and bare my soul and show my entire body and like tell them what my deepest convictions for the and like visions for the world are. What? Right? So just naming how, first of all, how much like dizzying change has happened over the past century, like in the world, right? That now we are allowed to be visible, at least somewhat, right? Like, it's not against the law, it's not against culture for women to show their faces, for women to share their voices and claim their power. That's another thing, right? But we are going against these real structural cultural forces, and I think knowing that, I just knowing that by itself is such a big relief. And whenever I remind my clients of what I'm telling you right now, it just feels like it's so healing, right? Because they're like, oh, it's not me, it's not me. And now when I talk about all this trauma and cultural forces and historical, this is not the point, is so not to like feel like victimized over it and feel like, oh no, they're so bad, we're so sad. Like it's not about that, right? You might process, give yourself time and space to process that grief, the anger that might arise when you think about these things. But then the point is that once you locate the source, once you know that you're not the problem, you can begin to take back the agency of how you respond to what the culture has handed you, right? So like what I always teach my clients, like if you like say who you are out loud, if you claim your power out loud in even the smallest way, like, hey, say, hey, I have an offer and it costs this much. Like even saying that is like an act of revolution against the patriarchy. It's an act of revolution against the oppression of every single, layer of marginalization that you and people like you have ever faced. So let's go fight that revolution. Like I tell them that it's not a joke, right? And I would love for all of you to remember that. I remind myself of it all the time because it puts what we're about to do on perspective. So just that awareness, right? And then knowing it's not that you feel like weak and fragile because you are weak and fragile. Like we've been taught that we're weak when we're actually fucking strong. We've been taught that we're fragile when we're actually like the most resilient people, right? You've been taught to fear your belonging, but that's only because if you actually owned your own belonging, then you would take over the world. And they're like, well, no, we need to keep the white men, right? Rich white men in power, right? So just knowing that.
That's amazing. And I just want to name that, like, if that's not your experience, then you might still have a sense of that experience just from other things that have gone on in your life, right? Because I saw Regina saying, I'm Italian, the women in my family are fierce and opinionated. And me, as a Jewish woman, women are like put here. Like we are, that's actually in our culture, it's like women are actually considered on a higher level than men. So we have like, but my issue was still not from that. It was from my parents arguing all the time. It was from my parents' divorce. It was from all, like, there are so many things that happen, whether or not it's in our culture because of it's a male woman thing. There's things that have happened that have programmed us to feel afraid of standing in our authentic truth. There have been things that have happened to all of us, and that's the point, no matter what.
I will
So
also add, sorry, I thank you so much for bringing that up. And even if you're a man, right? Even if you're like the epitome of privilege, like rich white man, whatever, you've still been taught, right? Since you were little, you have to be strong. You have to be perfect. You can't show your emotions, right? Like I talk to my husband all the time about he grew up with a military father and it was like not okay to be like a vulnerable human, right? So there's whatever your experience is, whatever you are taught not to be, that it's dangerous to be, you have to be this kind of person and hide yourself. Like that is operating in every level, whether it's ancestral or patriarchal or just personal circumstance in your life. So please know, I know that you have plenty of, lots of different kinds of people in your audience. So I just want to say what I said
but
is
the point is the same. We're all coming from stuff, and it then shows up in how you do one thing is how you do everything. It can show up in your business, and you're making a very clear point. And that is you're saying it through the lens that you've lived, which was so powerful and fascinating. And everybody relates to that no matter what, right? Because we all have a version of that somewhere, somehow. So then you come along and you have the courage to be authentic and showing up in your you-ness, which has been such a delight for all of us who get to be in your audience. You are just so fun and cool and smart and charming. And you have been sharing, like I was saying, these two words together I had never heard, joyful marketing, and teaching people different things that actually can make you want to lean into it, that it's actually a place to come alive, that it's a place to have fun. What are some of those? Because you have a program like this, you also talk about this in your podcast. What are some of those things? Like you say, be in partnership with the spirit of your business and those you serve. Create content that serves everyone who encounters your business. Make offers that sell by making new possibilities vivid in your clients' minds. Why don't you, because this is all such gold for us, help break down any of those things for us, just a bite, so that we might be able to lean in towards that and feel excited and feel like we have maybe a couple more clues of how to do it well.
Okay, so you just named a lot of things and really big umbrellas of things, very important umbrellas of things.
Whichever one you feel most called to talk about.
Right. So here's the part that I want to talk about, because I think that this is the part that really ties everything together. I think that marketing, people don't think of marketing as joyful because they think of marketing as following rules and performing so you win the audition, right? Like think of what it feels like to go in an audition. It's like, okay, I prepared well and I have to do this right so that they, so they accept me, so they give me high marks, whatever. So between that sort of like showing up to an audition mindset and like I have to follow the rules correctly and like write effective copy, and in order for a copy to be effective it has to be this and this and that, I have to post it 3 times a day to maximize the algorithm. So it's all these things.
It's exhausting.
It's exhausting, right?
Yeah.
So that's the only reason people don't think marketing is joyful, is because they think marketing is about that, to which I say gross, right? So I'm going to turn all of that on its head by saying that marketing is just what happens when you give a shit about another human being and you relate to them like you give a shit.
Okay.
Right? And here's the thing, in the relating, in that connection, right? That connection between you as an individual, you as a unique human being with a unique mind and spirit and heart, being present to connect to another human being, also with their unique hearts and souls and minds, right? That is where the magic of connection, the magic of relating, the magic of marketing happens, in the presence of two people. And now I know this sounds like very like whatever, but bear with me, right? And we kind of like take away from that magic of connection and how much of ourselves, how much of our presence we can bring when we start to think that marketing is about giving them something that's artificial. And here is the mantra that I teach my clients all the time so that you can show up from a place of authentic connection, right? So the mantra is, I bring value to the world by existing and breathing. The value that I offer my audience is my existence. The fact that I am breathing today, that's what I offer. That's the highest thing I can offer. Excuse me. Now, when you're off, like I am on vacation, or maybe when you're off because you're sick, maybe you're off because your kid is sick, whatever it is, right? Guess what? They're like, but I have to be creating value for my people. You are creating value for your people. You're alive. You exist. Bearing the imprint that is 1 in 7 billion, bearing the specific energetic frequency that you have, you exist as a human. Great. You're creating value in this moment right now. When you just practice breathing this idea in, that how I add value, my value contribution to the world, regardless of whether you have a business or not, is that I, as a unique human being, as a child of God, the way I think of it, I exist, I am here. It is enough. It is enough for my clients to see that. And therefore, I don't have to contrive and do fancy, complicated things to bring value. All I have to do is show up. Actually, you don't even have to show up. Like I said, you don't even have to like go make a reel or whatever. Just you existing is value, right? But then when you do show up and you're truly believing that who you are, just existing as you, is valuable, then you're going to feel so free to show up any way you want with whatever you want, and trust that that is going to be what builds those bridges of relating and getting to know and getting to trust. Right. And I think that I can tell you, oh, when you're like creating content, think about this, or when you're writing copy, think about that. I can tell you all of those things, but that all becomes moot, unless you have that quality of relationship with your people, which they can feel if you are believing that you are valuable in and of yourself or not. I promise you they can feel it. Let me give you a really little example to make this possibility feel more like practical, because it probably feels like a lot of like
No,
whatever.
it feels really good.
Okay,
Really
good.
good.
So I have a very, beloved email thing happening, right? Like people love my emails. I've been sending emails for years, every single week. Like it's been, all of my sales come from my emails. Well, nowadays I'm more on Instagram, but for years and years, like I made my first millions with just email, right? Excuse me. And I remember when I began that doing email marketing, right, in quotes, because it's just me like talking to people I give a shit about, like using human language, being human, right? I um I kind of made this rule with myself because I kept psyching myself out and like I was like too scared to write emails, but I made like this pact with myself, like I have like whoever is receiving this email, they just want to connect with me. That's it. They want to know me. They like me. They want to connect with me. And second of all I have to do is at the end of the email is to make them feel a little bit more seen, understood, cared about, loved. Like I just want to make them feel like somebody gives a shit about them. That was my whole reason for doing my email list, right? For sending emails. Because in the beginning, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I didn't have a niche. I didn't have like a positioning or whatever. I was just like, I don't know who my people are. I don't barely know what I'm selling. So I'm just going to like start writing emails, and I'm just going to believe that I am just valuable. They just want to hear from me. They just want to get to know me, period. Doesn't even matter what I'm offering. And two, all I'm going to accomplish is I'm going to help them feel like, I want to help them feel this connection that I genuinely feel to them. Like I want to make sure they leave the email feeling like 2% more like the world is like worth living in. It's like somebody gives a shit about me. I feel seen. I feel okay in my humanity. That was it. Right. So I started the email list with like 8 people, of course, and it's been years. And now, actually, I don't even know how many people we have. Probably around 10,000. Right. But I still email with the same idea. Like I don't email to like make offers and provide value. It's like, I don't think about that because I trust that whenever I just show up in their inbox, it's valuable. Why? Because it's me. They value me. Right. So that keeps me being like showing up as a human being, and not like, now I'm here to like give you value, right? Now I'm here to sell you on my offer. Let me give you 3 reasons and overcome your objections. Like I don't show up from that because I don't believe that's where the value is. So tying it all together, I actually think that's why I've been so successful in my quote unquote email marketing, and people trust me and they read whatever I write and they buy whatever I sell because they're like, guess what? Simone is the one person who isn't bullshitting us. And it's not like everybody else is a liar and a bullshitter. It's like everybody else is just as cool as I am. They're just like hiding under what they think is marketing, but is actually just bullshittery. And I define bullshittery as anything that gets in the way between humans who give a shit about each other, just like relating to each other normally.
It's so powerful what you're saying, but how you're saying it. There may have been a meme that says something similar, like just be you, that's your superpower. There's people who say things, but how you embody what you're saying is really giving people full permission to go ahead and just do it as simply as you're saying it. And as you were talking, I was thinking about how gorgeous it is what you're saying, the fact that who we are as we are is the gift, like that's the value. And you have seen also like, where there's been memes where it's talking about like jokes people make about like a good therapist. And it's like the good therapist says like nothing, right? And the person leaves and goes, this was the best session. And it's like, why? Because the person showed up and sat in a chair and held space for this other person. And that was the end, right? Like, it's amazing how much you said. You're right. There's so much BS to what we put in between just getting to it. And the idea of just being present, just real actual presence, is so rare and it's so valuable. And I agree. I think that that's exactly why I'm sitting in my career where I'm sitting, because I actually never read the books about all the things you're supposed to do because I couldn't process them. I never made sense to me to create slideshows and webinars and whatever. But the idea of being present felt really easy and doable, and that's all that has to happen. And every single person has a endless ability to be compassionate and empathetic and fun and present. So it's
That's,
incredible that you are this banner in the sky, that's
yeah.
helping.
Thank you for your reflection. And I have to add this because being truly present, just as yourself, believing that you are the value, existing is the value, I will say this is not something that necessarily comes naturally. So if you're like, okay, how do I do that? Or if like, I feel like I'm not good at that, you probably aren't. And it's not a problem. And here's the analogy that I will offer you is that, so for example, I'm not an actor. I've never been trained in theater except like one theater class in high school or something. And if you were to put me on a stage in front of like hundreds of people and say, here, we're going to do some improv, you just be yourself. I'd be like, what? What do you mean? All these people looking at me. How do I be myself? Right? Just relax. I'd be like, what does that mean to relax? And so for me, if I want to become a better actor, I will have to kind of like unlearn what it means to perform, right? And I have to like kind of let my own thoughts and like my ego and my not self-awareness, but self-consciousness, right? I have to like learn how to put that to the side so that I can really feel present on stage. And I'm not an actor, like I said, but I would imagine if you were an actor, you know how hard that is. It's a process, right? You're never like, you step on the stage from day one and you're like, I feel one with the universe and myself and the audience. Like, no, that's something you can practice and get better at, right? So if you have any kind of performance experience, you probably know what I'm talking about. So it's the same thing. If you go to social media and you freeze up and you're like, I don't know what it means to be myself, like I don't know how to bring the presence, that's okay. It's just like being on stage. Like I promise you, when you commit to the process, and you should practice showing up over and over again, you practice making your nervous system adjust to what it means to be visible, what it means to say what you want to say, what it means to be authentic, piece by piece. Like it really is, you have to build that safety. It's not overnight. It's not just you have like the right beliefs and then automatically, right? Let it be a process. If it feels hard, it's not you. And I really want to say that because otherwise a lot of people leave thinking like, oh, there's must be something wrong with me because Simone just like made it sound so easy and I still freeze up. No, that's a nervous system response, and it can take time to unwind, and it's okay. And you don't need to unwind it perfectly overnight in order for your business to work. I certainly didn't, right? It took me years. And guess what? Like that journey in itself was healing. So it in itself was valuable even before it started bringing me like lots and lots of money, right? So I just,
Beautiful. That's really, really beautiful. And this is all just, it really is. It's so important that there are people in the world saying these words, right? Um, and it's so much more than helping people with their business. Obviously, it's helping them to be free of this. Like, I mean, how sad is it that most people are carrying this belief and then carrying this as a practice to show up in some kind of mask and performative mode their entire life? So this message is so important. You have so much that you're doing for that works for everybody, but you also in 2020 you were talking specifically, which you do often also talk specifically to people who are life coaches who want to market their business. And so many of the people, Colleen and I were just talking about it yesterday, like I never say that out loud. I'm always like, if you want to sell a service, a product, if you want to create a course, you want to create an event. So many people who come through this community wind up wanting to do some kind of coaching, whether they want to do health coaching, financial coaching, coaching in general, clarity coaching. So let's talk for a second about it. And so one of the things that comes up, and I'm going to start reading the questions here, but one of the things I just want to piggyback on what you just said is I think that even if people can swallow what you were just saying and put it out there, they feel responsible for people's results and they question whether or not they can deliver results, which I think comes from a place of integrity on one level, but also comes from a place of ego, right?
Perfectionism. Yeah.
So how can we sort of step in with integrity so that we actually are not in a space, like if I was telling someone I could coach them on their SAT, lying because me and SATs didn't get along very well, right? But then there's certain things where it's like, oh yeah, podcasting, business, right? Like IVF, like these are all things like I've gotten my way through. So, right. So how can you step forward with integrity, but also not get caught in the trap of the ego and the perfectionism, which actually isn't integrity, it's just holding you back?
Okay. So this is a really great question. And here's a thing that it's a little paradoxical to understand, but we're all smart grown-ups. We can handle it, right? I think being a professional at anything is about understanding that at all times, what you bring to the table, your skills, who you are, it's enough at all times. And also, it's not enough. Both are equally true at all times, right? So let's say you decided to be a coach yesterday and you've never coached anyone before and you like learned a few things and you're like, okay, I think I can do this, but I'm not sure. I'm really scared. Da, da, da. As you are enough. Always. I don't care. You have what it takes to help people if that is your desire, right? And you have to take that like assumption of unconditional enoughness wherever you go. If somebody's in front of you, the fact that they're in front of you and open to coaching means you're qualified to coach them. That is the unconditional enoughness. Now, paradoxically, what's also true is that you're never enough. You're not enough, is that you're always going to be learning, right? You're always going to be finding ways in which you could be better, right? I spend so much of my time reflecting about ways in which I don't want to say like, okay, the reason I'm pausing is because like the words that came in my brain are like inadequacies or my, areas of deficiency, but I don't want them to get misconstrued because when I think about it, I'm not like, oh, I'm inadequate. Oh no, I have deficiency. It's not like that. It's more like, oh, these are areas where I can see there's a gap and I can't wait to go get better at it. Right. Oh, I did these things. I coach clients in this way and I can see that some things didn't work. Okay. So that's something that I need to grow into. That's the area where I need to get more skillful. Right. So if you stop seeing the things where you need to get better or you want to get better, if you stop being challenged by your work, I think you have to go find a new line of work, right? So I don't care, like if you could be the day one of being a coach, you have zero experience. You could be day 15 years and me and like be like known and have made millions of dollars. It's still going to be, you're always unconditionally enough and there's more areas where you can get better. Always. That never changes. Because I think a lot of newbie coaches have this fantasy that when I arrive, like when I'm experienced enough, when I've made enough money, when I have enough authority, when I get there, then like this strife is going to end, but it doesn't. Like I always talk to my colleagues and friends who are, at the level of like, I don't know, income, whatever that I am, we're all in similar places. And we're always talking about, oh man, I fucked that one up. Or, oh man, I just identified this giant blind spot that I have where I know nothing and I don't know how to help these clients. And we're very serious about it. We're very earnest about it because our own growth, how we show up for our clients is very important to us. We take that very seriously, the obligation to keep learning and to be open to being wrong. And we never use that against ourselves. We never make it a reason to not show up. We never make it a reason to shame ourselves. So I think holding that paradox of you are enough and also there's areas where you're not enough, and with a side of unconditional self-love, not side, it's like the foundation, right, of unconditional self-love is, I think that's what's going to give you the confidence to go out there and show up, and also the resilience and the sort of grace for yourself to let yourself fail in quotes a few times, let yourself not meet your own expectations a few times, have a few clients who are disappointed. Guess what? The world isn't going to end. Every single coach you know has gone through it. It's going to keep happening. It's because as much as you're evolving, you're always also going to get better.
I love all of that up until like it's like drinking the last drop of the cappuccino because it's so good. Even that last piece was like, okay, so you won't satisfy everybody. And then what? Because like that's gonna happen, right? And then will you survive that? Will you be okay? Will you grow from that? Is there any restaurant, store, coach, product that satisfied every client? I'll wait, right? So
Yeah.
that'll happen. And then what, right? Every last drop of what you just said. So beautiful. So can I ask you a couple questions really quick from the chat?
Yeah.
So Monica said, I'm trying to pick questions that I feel like might be universal to a lot of questions. She said, how do you articulate the transformation when you're coaching in a specific way? So she's calling herself a lunar coach. She put in parentheses, but how do you articulate the transformation is, I think, a great question that a lot of people have.
Okay. So here's my answer to that. Practice, give yourself the assignment to say it 20 different ways. Right. I think how do we articulate it? It kind of almost makes it sound like there's like one right way to articulate it and you have to like go find it.
Right.
You have to download it from the moon. Right. You guys, you have to like let yourself be a little sloppy with it. How about if I say it this way? What if I interview the client and like write down every single word they write, every single word they say, and then use it? What if I, put myself in their shoes? What would it be like if I were writing to my own self who used to struggle with this? And then just come up with as many ways as you can think of and try them all, test them all. Right? Because we think that we need to come up with the magical combination of like just specific enough and like just the right words to like entrance our right clients. But I think what truly happens is that in the process of you being like reckless enough to try 20 things, some things are going to stick with certain people and other things are going to stick with some other people. Right. So let's say you took this assignment seriously and you're like, okay, I'm going to try saying it 20 different ways. And some ways are just going to be weird and random and they're going to suck. And just something that you threw out, like while you're like on the toilet pooping and you're like, oh, I just had this one weird idea. I can talk about it. And you put it on your phone and it's like 2 sentences. Like that could be the thing that makes hundreds of people go, oh my God, like now I feel spoken to. Right. And the thing that you like conscientiously like write over days, it could be the thing that's boring and nobody wants to read, right? So it's this idea of like exercising your brain to like look at different angles, to say it as many different ways as possible, as different like creative methods as possible, and then just willing to put it all out there and see what happens and never stop. I feel like I'm still doing that with all of my offers. Like I'm always just like finding different ways to talk about it and not getting hung up on like this. There's going to be like one magical, perfect way that solves all my problems and converts all the people. That's not a thing.
Love that. There's a question here. Someone sent me in private message that said that she loves your posts and follows you. And you did a post recently on celebrating the murky stuff. And she's asking if you could share something that was murky like that you celebrated.
Okay. So this is another example that they are going to appreciate if they have been closely following me on social media. So I was supposed to have a launch earlier this year, and it was going to be $1 million launch of my very beloved, very popular, sold out every single time mastermind. And just days before the launch, I realized this is not aligned anymore. This is not what I want to sell anymore. It is not who I am anymore. If I'm always to offer from like the very edge of my creativity and authenticity and integrity as a coach, this is not it. This is not it. All I knew was this is not it. And the launch that I've been working on for months, that had everybody on the edge of the seats waiting to throw money at me for that one offer, right? That sold out every single time. I had to kill it because I'm not going to sell something where I know it's like outdated, right? Like it's not me anymore. And so what I had left was total fucking murkiness. Like what? Like I had no idea what was next. I had no idea. And I had enough practice following my own advice of trusting the murkiness, trusting the darkness of like everything that was solid and known and delineated and clean before is now in total chaos. I have practiced becoming friends with that enough where I didn't freak out. And I was like, I bet something cool is about to happen. And so what I did was just trust my people and say, that's not going to work anymore. Everything that I've been selling you for the past few months, I'm sorry, it's gone. It no longer exists. I know I want to do something with y'all next. I have no idea what it is. Want to come with me? And when I said this, I was like, okay, maybe like 2 people are going to come with because it's so weird. And I don't even care because I can't, I'd rather like find out what this is than do the proven thing just because it's going to make me money when my heart is not in it. So I launched at the same date for something where I told everybody I have no idea what it is. I literally have no idea what it is. All I know is it's gonna be a container. I will be there. The rest of it, I don't know. And I ended up making more money than my original plan because there were so many lunatics who were like, I don't care about anything except whatever this is, it sounds fun. And so that was a prime example. And I will tell you, sometimes when you trust the Merc and when you find peace in the not knowing and you take one step forward, it doesn't always end with people, throwing confetti at you. And it's not always like easy and happy. And I just gave you this one example because I think we need more examples, right? Sometimes it's just dark for a while. Sometimes trusting just feels like you're being fucked by the universe over and over again. Like it's not like you trust and immediately, right? Like it's not like that, but it is like that sometimes, truly, right? And this was such an example of like, oh, everything that you've been saying, everything that you've been exemplifying, working towards, where you're truly not selling, like, here's the problem that I'm solving for you. Like, here's a step-by-step process. I'm not saying that. I'm selling my presence. I'm selling
100%.
the authenticity and the integrity of how I continue to let myself evolve and be open to what's next, even when I don't know what it is. And that did ended up being the most powerful thing that people wanted to buy, even more than the offer that I had before.
It's so juicy. It's so gorgeous. I love it. I want to hold it, wrap it in a bow, and keep it on my desk. And I also want to just remind of the great Wayne Dyer quote, which is, we never, ever manifest what we want. We don't attract what we want. We attract what we are. And so when you said, I've been in this river long enough to know, ooh, something fun is coming. Remember you said that? When you got murky, but you said, but ooh, something fun is coming.
Yeah.
And then you said, hey, I know I want to work with you guys, and I don't know what it is. You want to come with me? You were a match for something fun is coming. And they wanted to be in the unboxing of something fun is coming because it's a match. It's Velcro. They want what is, it was, it is. So that's enough. That is it. That's the thing. It's like there's no one way to do anything. People say to me, I don't understand. All these years you do it this way and that converts and this, and you never use affiliates and it's like, it is whatever you fully are congruent with it being. Then they feel, oh, this is baked. This is cooked all the way through. Now that's probably the best way for you to launch everything. I don't know what it's going to be.
I have started to think that now.
Here's where you sign up for it, and we're going to let it unveil itself.
And if you think about it, every time you say, I know how it's going to be like this, in a way, you're always lying. Because you never really know what's going to happen, right? So it's like, I'm only telling the truth.
Also,
yeah.
Every person I've ever met deeply wants a transcendent experience. Yeah. What does that mean? That means it's outside of the predictable. That means it's in the mystical. Mm-hmm. That means it's not in what I can predict, because that is so not exciting. Nothing's alive in there. Boring. Okay, last question. Robin said, finding a coach seems really terribly out of reach financially. How do I find a coach I can afford where I am financially? I'm starting new business and da 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 da. And she's basically saying, however, the financial aspect is real. So her question there was, how do we find a coach you can afford when you're at wherever you are financially? What do you say to people when they want a coach and then they feel that their finances puts them in a certain place?
Okay, so listen, when you say I want a coach, that's coming from this assumption that you don't have one. You've got a coach. You got Cathy. What are you talking about?
Well, maybe she means
I
like,
know what she means.
yeah,
But,
yeah.
right? Like, I'm here. You have a coach in your ear if you listen to Cathy's podcast every
That's
single
true.
week.
That's true. And yours, you got,
And
everyone has to listen to hers. It's so good. It's going to melt your face off. Okay, go ahead.
I was just thinking, so in Korea, I live in an apartment in a high rise. Everybody in Korea lives in a high rise. I'm in this Airbnb in LA. We have a yard, right? So I'm sitting in the yard right now. I can listen to birds. And I was just thinking here, I was just sitting here yesterday on my yard, listening to the birds, just like staring at this beautiful blue California sky, being like, I'm being coached by this yard right now. This yard is coaching me. Like I'm having a transformational experience, like staring at the sky at like 2 p.m.
Yes.
And
yes, you are.
I was. And the thing is, you can either have an attitude of like, everything is coaching me at all times. And actual coaches are coaching me. I've got Cathy, I've got Simone, whatever coach I want to learn from, they probably have a podcast, right? So you can live in this abundance of like, there's
yes.
so much coaching, or you can be like, I want a coach that I can't afford, right? That's like, listen, I get, you know, how you say that. Like, I get it, of course, but also, take a moment to like soak in the abundance of support that exists for you. Like the universe wants to coach you all the time. You just have to be awake to it. Just have to be noticing, like literally, if you want to turn your entire life into like coaching, just ask yourself, oh, what does this tree want to coach me on, right? Like what would they ask me if they wanted me to like if they were my coach, right? Like there's so many, like somebody cuts you off in traffic, instead of being like, oh, fuck you, just ask yourself, okay, what if this were a coaching moment, right? And you can just like all day long be coach. And sometimes you might be like, okay, now I think I like don't want to coach anymore.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Yep.
And I promise you, once you have that abundant attitude of like just being open to receive all the abundance, I promise you, like what Cathy said, the Velcro thing, when you're like, I have enough, you're going to attract clients who are also in, I have enough and I have even more for the things, experiences that I want to choose, right? So I want that to be your mantra, your questioner, right? Like I have more than enough coaching that I could ever want, and whatever more I want, I always have the resources for. I can pay for it, right? I already do pay for the things that I want, that are worth it to me. So I want you to be in that mindset.
Gorgeous. So good. I want Simone, tell them where they can get on your email list and where they can find your podcast and your courses, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, if you find me on IG, if you click on the link tree in my profile, the link, you're gonna find the links to all of them. If you like hanging out with me, you should absolutely listen to the podcast, absolutely get on my email list. And yeah, and then we'll start our relationship, see where it goes.
Well, it's already started. You are extremely generous. You're extremely alive. You have the energy of about 1,000 people in one person. And it's really like a Crayola factory, sort of takes you in, explodes, and puts you in orbit just like being around you. So thank you for just no holds barred showing up in the world and taking us on the journey. It's awesome.
You know, when you're with Cathy in a room full of humans like yourselves, it's like I'm not like even mad to be on vacation, but on a call. Like, thank you for nourishing me. This has been so beautiful. Thank you so much, Cathy.
God bless you. Keep going. You are going to only be so much more successful than you've already been. And we all know it. And it's just so cool. Like you ain't seen nothing yet and you've already done so much. So I'm just glad I have a good seat.
I'm so honored. Thank you.
Awesome. Enjoy that rest of the vacation.
Bye.
Okay, to be continued.